Will Walden was Chief Counsel and Communications Director to Boris Johnson when he was Mayor of London and in his early days in Downing Street, and he joins me now. Will, I mean, your thoughts on the resignation and indeed on the resignation speech, if you would.
Yeah, afternoon, Mariella. Well, I think, truthfully, and I say it with a heavy heart, as someone I've known Boris for a very long time, um, I'm relieved and I'm glad this afternoon. Not something I ever thought I would say, but the truth is, it was in danger of becoming farcical, and I think it was also in danger of threatening the very tenets of our democracy and the behaviour of, frankly, the Prime Minister and some of those around him, with some of the briefings in the last 24 hours, the hands dipped in blood stuff, and they dragged me out backwards, says everything you need to know about Boris's current state of mind. He's never going to change. He hates apologising and the like. But the problem is, we're here today mainly because of the Prime Minister's mistakes and missteps over the last 8 months, and he really only has himself to blame. So I was not surprised by the speech. It could have been, I suppose it could have been worse, but there wasn't a great deal of humility. I think he's right to sort of say, I got Brexit done. I don't think they've got Brexit fixed, but they've got it done. The pandemic, the stuff in Ukraine, and the stuff and thanking the family, the civil service, and the like, is all Boris. He's a decent man at heart. There is a decent guy there, and he did all the right things there. But what was clearly lacking was a sense of contrition or self-reflection about himself. He doesn't want to go. That's clear from the speech, and he blames the machinations of the Conservative Party for that, when, if he was really being honest with himself, he should be blaming himself. They have only moved because he's refused to move, and he pretty much has done this to himself. So it was a painful listen. Things like the herd instinct is powerful is basically putting the blame front and centre of his colleagues. And I think that, just briefly, the problem now is, given all the trust that has evaporated, is he honestly trying to build a government for the next 12 weeks? And I hope that if he succeeds, he doesn't do anything extraordinary or outlandish and just keeps a steady ship. But when you look at Cameron and May stepping down, the whole point about being, no one was worried about that 12-week period. It didn't turn out to be 12 weeks with Theresa May, but they didn't worry about that. It's kind of like, they'll do a steady job. And I think because of the lack of trust, there's a lot of questions about whether Boris can keep it together for 6 to 12 weeks. And I don't think we've seen the end of whether he remains Prime Minister for that time.
And just briefly, I mean, surely it would be total torture for him to be sat there as the sort of lame duck Prime Minister, slightly disgraced and knowing he's got to leave. That doesn't sound like a comfortable situation for the Boris Johnson that we've all come to know.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I suppose what I would say is, how much of that is he really thinking? And perhaps he isn't reflecting on that, and maybe it's kind of like, he tried until the very last to dig his fingernails in, as I predicted that he would. It will be uncomfortable, and that's why I think we've got to be very careful, and he's got to be very careful, that in the next 12 weeks, they just, to Linton Crosby's old phrase, scrape the barnacles off the boat. All the legislation that doesn't matter, all the stuff that they were doing from a red meat Conservative perspective, in my view, needs to be junked. What they need to concentrate on in this transition period is doing the best they can in the cost of living crisis, and concentrating fundamentally only on that, and obviously what's going on in Ukraine. And he mustn't tie his successor's hand with elaborate moves. What I would say to you, Mariella, just briefly, is that if he does manage to continue, the people he's brought in are very sensible people, right? So people do not need to worry. Robert Buckland, Greg Clark, and James Cleverly and Kit Malthouse, who worked with him as mayor, those people all know Boris well. And this morning I've been having some brief interactions with various people at the top of the party, and I think they're all of a mind that they say the same thing. He may be a lame duck Prime Minister. If he stays, they will do the best they can to keep him on the straight and narrow, but I still think it's a big if.
Well, thank you very much. Will Walden, former Chief Counsel and Communications Director to Boris Johnson, both when he was Mayor of London and in his early days in Downing Street.